look at these beauties. Every week I offer sourdough baguettes for my customers. I auto-lease and mix in my spiral sun mix mixer. Take it out. As you can see, it's really strong and it wants to stick together, which is a great sign coming out of the mixer. And then I'm gonna do a fold to bring the dough all together. After this fold, I give it another 3 folds, 30 to 45 minutes apart. Doesn't have to be exact. And once it's bulk fermented for about 4 hours, depending on the time and temperature of your space, I pop it in the fridge. This is the next day. You can see that it's risen significantly, not only during bulk fermentation, but also during cold proof. And I find this to be the most important step, pre-shaping. You want to get your baguettes in a cylinder initially so that you don't have to fight the dough to get it stretched out and thin once you actually shape it. I see a lot of people pre-shaping into rounds, like little dough balls, but I prefer to do it that way. I find it's much easier. After a really good long rest, I give them an hour at least to rest after popping them out of the fridge. I do a shape. I like to use a liberal amount of flour. It'll absorb back into the dough, but I do this to make sure it doesn't stick to my counter. After folding in each side once, I go in and push my thumb into the center to do the final seal of getting the dough nice and tight. And then I give it a good roll. You want to use a good amount of pressure when rolling, and you really have to get that roll in the first motion. Going back and rolling again works, but then that's when the dough starts to spring back on you, and that's when you're fighting to get it that right length. After I've shaped it, I move it over to my couche, which is just a fancy French word for a thick linen or cotton cloth that can support the dough while it finishes proving. I wanted to show you scoring, but my phone turned off, so I score each baguette 5 times, load it into a really hot oven, and here is where I made my mistake for the day. I had forgotten to turn my oven back on and get it super ripping and extremely hot before I put the baguettes in, and they actually ended up having to bake for a lot longer, which didn't give them the thinnest crust. Usually, I pride myself on super thin crusts, and these baguettes were still beautiful, and I don't think that my customers noticed that much, but for me, it was one of those things that I really had to just say, all right, move on. They're still beautiful. They're still delicious. I bake these in my Simply Bread oven, and you can find the recipe on their YouTube.